The session will be moderated by Mr. Piyush Gupta, who's the MD Capital Markets and Investment Services with Colliers International India. Well, I will invite Mr. Dutt to formally take over the session, do a formal welcome for all the speakers, and I hope you find today's session very meaningful and interactive. Mr. Dutt, over to you. Sachin, I don't think he can hear us. Sachin?
Is there online?
But he cannot hear us because I've asked him to speak and he's not there. There you are.
Very good afternoon. How are you?
Very well. I just informally welcomed and left it to you to formally welcome all the speakers and take over the session and moderate the session.
No, thank you very much, everyone, for connecting. I think we've had many webinars over the last few months. Some may say because of containment, we had no choice. But I think it's an opportunity for us to use this time to reflect on what we have gone through and also what we know lies ahead of us. And therefore, many a times one is kind of confined to your own style of thinking and thought process. But I think opportunities like this enable us to learn from each other and spark some ideas which can potentially benefit all the stakeholders and businesses. And what I found very satisfying, which is not that the government was not very proactive, but these circumstances have actually made the government be more alert. And I think FICCI as a body provides that opportunity to all of us to raise. Very recently, I went online with some of the colleagues from the industry that how we can make this industry better. For example, a lot of our customers have also gone through some hardship. And one thought process came that how about making the loan portability for them easy, and also some of the bank processing charges, which sometimes takes time and it's costly, and one does cost benefit analysis. If we were to open that door, it will just make the whole process very transparent, and customers will have a natural choice to choose a bank or an NBFC to actually go for loan. And I think that little bit of healthy competition will enable our customers to get the best of the market. And we know many institutes are actually offering very low interest, and they're very keen to grow their book. And therefore, why not some benefits can be passed on. So ideas like this actually keep coming. So I'm really grateful, Nirja, for this opportunity and putting this together. I think we can have initially to kickstart some high-level developers perspective. The objective is to how do we unlock some potential that we see still in the sector. I clearly see it. I can tell you about Tata Realty and Tata Housing. All our 20 construction sites have gone live. We are back to full construction. I know some of our other colleagues on the webinar and outside of this webinar have also commenced. The most simple step, without getting into complicated strategy discussions, is how do we bring back what we were doing before COVID? So if we just do that, I think that would be a huge contribution from all of us. And that's what we are doing. We started coming to office. We started doing all our work business as usual. Other than sales being little down, all our commercial portfolio, rental income is coming on time. Staff is working excellently. All our business processes are on track. Our communication is all time good. Only a sense of camaraderie in the office and culture is missing, which I think we're trying to adapt and create. So I'll get started with Mr. Gitamar Anand. So thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
And also, Gitamar, with you, a lot of energy comes along.
Thank you.
It's an afternoon session, so I would like to trigger some adrenaline in everybody's mind.
Okay.
What has been your observations in last, I would say, a month? I know no point talking about last 3 months because it's mostly not so encouraging. But now, we've seen, at least I've seen, South is doing very well. I know Mumbai and NCR are struggling, and we have Vinamra here from Capital Land who actually lives in Bangalore. We can reach out to him as well. But in terms of COVID, uh, I think a lot of markets are opening up. I saw some data points in the newspaper on automobile and some others. Little early to conclude, but if we are getting some signs, which means 6 months down the road, I'm sure things will be dramatically normal. So Gitamar, first to you, and then I'll quickly come to Vinamra if that's okay. I'm giving you heads up well in time to structure your thoughts.
Thank
Gitamar,
you,
over.
Sanjit.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So, see, after the lockdown opened, Sanjay, there was a great enthusiasm in everybody. Okay, now things are back to normal, and people did start going to office. And but unfortunately, this problem, this contagion is such that it's coming back, in spurts. And whenever
Yeah.
it comes back now, UP is locked down for 2 days, so there's no continuity in the work process.
Yeah.
That being said, so what is happening is, so my customers also, he's still or she's still not confident that they should go on and make that purchase. That being said, what has changed in the last month is the view of the courts, the view of the bankers. I will give you an analogy. So recession is a pit. And in
Yes.
this pit, India, of course, it's been said by the RBI that we are entering a recessionary mode. So all of us as businessmen, as entrepreneurs and bankers and everybody, all stakeholders are now in a pit which is at a minus 4.5 or minus 5.
Yes.
To give you an analogy, let's look at us as people who are stuck in that pit. And to get out of the pit, there are two ways. One is the stronger ones can use the weaker ones, stomp over them and get out of the pit. And the other way is, and when they get out, when the stronger ones get out of the pit, the weaker ones are still weaker ones. When I say weak and strong, I'm saying ones who are today strong in their businesses, or let's say, I would say the bankers are the stronger ones today.
Yes.
So the stakeholders who are left behind are the real estate developers and people who are the people who are working on ground. So if the bankers do emerge out of the pit by ignoring other stakeholders and say, okay, we are out of it now, they will not survive once they're out, because it is a complementary relationship we have.
Obviously.
Till we are not there to work for them, they will not really survive. The other way to get out of it is that the stronger ones form a base at the bottom of the pit to let the weaker ones get out first. So today, what I'm trying to say here is that we need support from the financial institutions. We need support from the funds. We need support from any and everybody who can actually and has lent money to real estate. The practical problem on ground, Sanjay, and I'm talking for most of the developers, the small, medium, and the large ones. Practical problem on ground is liquidity. There is a liquidity shortage of liquidity. It always was there before COVID also, but now it's just become worse because the customer has also stopped paying. So we've been, it well, and we fought together with government, and we've told them, give some sort of liquidity as you've given to the MSME sectors. Going to office, I mean, how will we continue without money? Starting projects, getting labor back, how will we continue without money? So that some money to trigger the process of construction on site is required. And, corporates are different in that sense, because you have a balance sheet, you can take money out of there and you can, fund any immediate requirement. But for 99% of the developer community, access to this emergency capital today is actually impossible to come by. Now, and I was, speaking in Ministry of Finance to Secretary Banking also, and they are, and Amitabh Kant se bhi baat hui meri. They are saying, okay, fine, if a project is looking at, is doing a PMAY product, where 210 square meter carpet area, then we can come up with some formula where the RBI provides some TLTRO to the NBFCs, and of course, PSUs have money anyway.
And provide liquidity through that route.
They can come up with some formula where an emergency line of funding, maybe 10 or 15 or 20% of your sanction line, is extended to you for this COVID situation, because
which is not bad. I think, and if the government starts that, Gitamar, then I think let's पहले ये तो पकड़ लेते हैं.
हाँ, बिल्कुल सही बात. तो इससे और दूसरी चीज जो मैंने आपसे और लास्ट पैनल डिस्कशन पे भी मैंने कहा था, वो भी मैंने उनको नोट दिया है कि भाई जो हमारा सिक्योरिटी है, इसलिए वो खरीदा because if I take a loan today, will I be able to service my EMI maybe next month, next month? And I'm talking about under construction properties also.
Sure.
So in that scenario, if my HFC can give a subvention for 24 months where my home buyer gets a job security, and there are models where we can as we go along, I'll discuss that model. If that security comes from the HFC rather from the developer, because the developer has got no liquidity to subvent a purchase today. I don't have the cash flow to give subventions. So therefore, if the HFC comes up with a product wherein they subvent the home buyer's EMI for 2 years or just the interest, don't charge him EMI. It can be like a stepped up finance, So if
Understood.
they get something like that, then of course you'll have more courage in the home buyer to come and put down that deposit. So these two things, if they're done, they will immediately kickstart liquidity in a sector which already has been starved.
So let me step back. So this is on the residential side.
Yeah.
And I'm just mindful because it gives me an opportunity to put a little positive vibe in the market through commercial. So commercial, as you know, Gitambar, is a very organized sector.
Yeah.
You have India's top developers.
Correct.
Controlling 650 million square feet. And I'm very fortunate that I'm in touch with at least a small group which controls 350 million square feet, and we talk every fortnight. And general message that I'm getting is they're collecting 98%, 99% of the rent on time. So no problem there. There could be some small companies who may be going through a little bit of pain. So that's one. Second, I heard the India's second REIT is going to go live in a very short distance from now. And as you know, the India's first REIT is doing very well. So I will quickly, take Vinamra's help to discuss on office. Then we can, talk about some other areas which may actually be worth deliberating. So Vinamra, over to you.
I
Right,
will just
thanks,
step in for. I will
Yes.
just step in for a minute. Piyush, you can moderate the session with Sanjay wherever you need to ask something. Please be
Sure.
free.
No, absolutely. I think Sanjay, yeah, absolutely.
So Piyush, so I will step back after this and you take it forward, please. Yes.
No, sure, absolutely. No problems.
Yes. Vinamra.
Thanks,
Vinamra, over to you.
Thanks, Sanjay. I think you're right. Commercial is comparatively still the brighter spot in the market. But so here's what we are seeing. On the construction side, as you said, all our sites are open. But what is still not uncertain is the certainty of ramp up of labor. Even though it's much better than where we were 2 months back, it is continuing to get better. But with recently, for example, what's happening in Bangalore, last weekend, I think there was a huge traffic jam for people trying to get out of Bangalore.
Yes.
And such news, as you can expect, a lot of times from a perception perspective is not so good for the workers on the ground. So there could be times of reverse panic again and trying to go back. So I think that ramp up is increasing slowly. In all honesty, our sense is that it could take up till probably Diwali till we see the 100% ramp up really back on site. I mean, we are working with like 4 of the largest main contractors in the country today, and they all keep submitting us plans to them every week, every fortnight. And that is the sense we are getting. But the good thing is that at least they are able to give us a plan because they have confidence that they'll be able to ramp up the labor. 1 month back, they were telling us, sorry, don't ask for plans because we don't know where can I get my labor from. So I think that is quite positive. And you can at least, kickstart your projects at different phases, etc., based on that. So that's on the construction side. Now, on the occupier side, you are right. The months of April and May were, in a sense, the worst in terms of the timeliness of collections. But very glad to see that all the collections have come through. You're right, the percentage is 98, 99%. And those small ones which haven't were the ones which anyways were not going to be sustainable. And that's a natural churn that keeps happening in the portfolio all the time anyways, right? What we are seeing in the market is over the last 2-3 months, there was just dead silence. You would know, Sanjay, no movement at all of any RFP, etc. But in the last, I would say 2 weeks or so, we are having site visits in Bangalore, in Gurgaon, in Pune. I've had at least 3 cities where my teams have had site visits of occupiers. I mean, Bangalore was already in the papers as well. Some of the big tech firms are on the lookout for spaces. So we are beginning to see some movement on some of those RFPs which were just silent. even though the travel restriction of the ultimate decision maker of some of those guys still hold true, but they've started talking again. They said, okay, you know what, let's work on the commercials, let's look at the other things. So not saying that decision making will fast track, but at least there is movement. And I think that is a positive sign. Lastly, in terms of what's happening in the offices, in the parks, and that I would say is still worrying, because we don't see much physical occupancy still. The number is still in single digit percentage points, 5 to 10% is the max occupancy physically that we are seeing in all our parks. And pretty much every day I talk to some of our large customers, and what they are saying is that unless things improve in the cities, even though the parks like us are putting in all the world-class measures, which they're appreciative, but they're saying that the employees are still a bit scared to get out, and we don't want to push them. So there is not much certainty on how the physical occupancy will ramp up unless something drastic changes on the ground. And especially for a city like Bangalore, what's been happening the last 2 weeks is not encouraging at all. So that's a situation on the ground in the parks.
So just to summarize before Piyush takes over, so leasing activity may be slow, but it's returning. I think in residential, I was talking to Samir of Proc Equity, and he was saying 35% demand in comparison to last year, and doing better in affordable. And if we were to compare the profile of the developers who have access to capital, so commercial is reasonably comfortable, and the reputed corporate developers or reputed local developers on the residential side who have access to capital, most of them have started work. But there are the legacy projects and some tier 2, tier 3 developers who need liquidity, and that's what Gitambar was alluding to, and therefore a lot more help required. So from unlocking the value point of view, I will let Piyush to steer the rest of the discussion. Piyush, thank you.
Thanks, Sanjay. So starting with the point which Gitambar made out on the liquidity, I think which the sector has been waiting for a long time. So Anira, your views, NBFCs and HFCs have been the biggest lenders to real estate for the last 5-6 years, having put more than 2 lakh crore. Now, and we know quite a few of them are no more investing, or in fact withdrawing capital. Now, in this scenario, what role do you think like HFCs and NBFCs like yours will want to take in investing in real estate? One, and the point also on the cost side, while the government has been giving liquidity to NBFCs and banks, and the liquidity is not ultimately coming to the real estate sector, and as a reason, we see the pricing for borrowing in real estate remains very, very high. So, how do you see that spanning out in times to come?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Piyush, for asking this pertinent question, which is very relevant in today's scenario. Liquidity is one thing which everybody, all the NBFCs and developers and HFCs are struggling for the past 2 years. It is not only post-COVID that we have encountered this problem, but pre-COVID also, and last year also, the economy itself was slowing down, and the liquidity was becoming an issue with all the stakeholders. So I think what happens is that you will find that this sector was doing pretty good past 10 years. If you see in 2009 to 2019, this sector had attracted institutional investors and, worth US $30 billion for the last 10 years. If you see the last quarter 20, the investment from institutional investors to the real estate sector is just about 712 million. These figures I have taken from ANAROC and KPMG and their data. I also find that in the retail segment, it had also attracted PE funds and to an extent of US $1 billion in the last year, 2019. So these are the funds which came into the sector. And, I always feel that this sector has got a lot of potential. We are looking at this sector with a 13% GDP growth in the year 2025. And this sector is poised to grow at US $1 trillion by 2030. These are the predictions which are there for this sector. So the corrections are happening in the sector, but then the liquidity problem is one which is faced by each and every person. So what I feel is that, the government has done a little bit in giving, some funds to NHB for refinancing. Of the 10,000 crores which went to NHB, a lot of NBFCs and HFCs were entitled to that refinancing fund. So that has been distributed by NHB, and we were also party to that, and we also received some funds from them. But then again, everybody is doing very cautiously at the moment. And in spite of RBI saying, the regulator saying that please do not look at the, the ratings of the NBFCs and please give funds to each and every NBFCs. But somewhere down the line, the banks are not very comfortable. The regulator, the refinancing NHB is not very comfortable in going ahead and releasing these funds, because they again are looking at their own funds and their own, way of doing business. So, but I also feel that, this liquidity problem will lead to consolidation. You would know that, we have builders like in Chennai, we have Shriram Properties, which we know that is going on making 15,000 units as of now. But it is not from the base or the scratch that they have started. They have now started acquiring the projects which have gone into stressed, and they have started to take consolidation into those projects. Also, as compared to the earlier, to COVID-19 situation, the real estate is now moving towards more of consolidation. There are a wide ranges, changes in the way we do the business, the way we are now practicing the business, the strategies, the designing, the consumer behavior, which is coming into this, this entire business of real estate. The COVID-19 will break the backbone of lot of, smaller developers, as was being told by Mr. Gitambar that, a lot of developers, the small ones will remain down, or either they will not come up. So it is also predicted that, 30% of these developers may take the exit route. So then what? Then where does the consumer go? Where does the borrowers will go? So this liquidity problem can be addressed, I believe, very well, as Shriram is doing, by taking over the stressed projects, completing them, giving the opportunity to the buyers to remain in the market, and also giving the liquidity assets of these builders who have no money, nothing now to go forward to. So this consolidation, as per the CREDAI chairman also, will be now the in thing in the real estate sector. And I hope that this comes in and this takes over, and this really becomes the order of the day with the post-COVID situation. And the COVID will also bring a lot of changes in the way the construction activities were happening in this country. I think the product and the planning and the customer behavior, which we will see post-COVID, will change. The customer today now is, even the builders, I think, will now look at providing certain facilities to the customers. For example, a builder may think of providing, a real a project with a high-speed internet. This was never thought of by the builders in the past. And this will again, give one industry a boost. That will be our mobile phone industries, which will also get boosted by this kind of a, change and behavior and in by the builders in the construction activities. And I think this change will bring a welcome change in the industry, and these outlook which the industry will now come out with in the post-COVID-19 situation will be very positive, and things will turn to the advantage of all.
Okay. So what you're saying is the credit will be available to select few, and that will lead to consolidation and a lot of stress workout. So what we are saying is maybe next 9 months, 12 months time, we are going to see a lot of workouts happening in the financial services industry and as well as the developer side, right?
Yes.
So how do you see the financing on the retail side? We have seen now home loans, rates going as low as maybe we have not seen last 8-10 years.
Yes.
Are HFCs being more stringent on giving housing loans, or it will be as flexible? Do we see more of ADF subvention scheme being supported by HFCs?
Will when you speak on the subvention scheme, I think there is almost a ban by the regulator now on those subvention schemes, which were running either 1090 or 2080 schemes earlier. Even with the ADRs, which will be advanced disbursement facility, which was available earlier to the borrowers, and we would simply give the entire money to the developer, and the borrower's EMI would start immediately, whether there was a delay to the project or not. The borrower would be affected if he was in a pre-EMI condition, not in an EMI condition. So I think that the industry can think of starting this ADRs, which will help both the borrower as well as the developer in the long run. Because if we stop these practices which were there earlier, why I say this is because see, this industry is almost getting regulated in the sense that now we have the RERA, which is being implemented by most of the states. So we know that these projects are on. We know that these projects are going to be over within this period of time. So there are regulations which have been put into the projects, and nobody is now taking you for a ride if you go through the right projects through the RERA and through other things. So why not? We can again think of starting these ADRs and look at again kind of a finance to the developer for completing his projects and getting more people into his projects. So I am for but in the long run, in some cases the ADR doesn't work, in the sense that if the construction does not happen in the time frame, or it takes a longer period of time, then the borrower thinks that he's taken for a ride in these kind of ADR situations. But as far as regulator is concerned, now we have to pay to the developer on the the construction completion certifications, that how much is the percentage of construction completed, then we go on paying him. Circumvention schemes have already been stopped. A lot of HFCs have faced the problems from a lot of developers who were in the pre-EMI stages, who have not been able to deliver the projects, and who have not been able to again sell more of the the project, because they have just found themselves short of the finances. So I feel that in the current scenario, as far as HFCs are concerned, we are also cautiously treading ourselves, in the sense that we can give liquidity. Liquidity is available now to the borrower at around 7 to 7.5% of rate of interest. The the lockdown has come as a watershed moment for the many tenants to think that let us now own a house rather than living in a rental property, because the rents are going very high and there are no returns on these rental properties. So that is one aspect which has come into the minds of the people during this pandemic, and I think it is a very good sign. Secondly, we also find that it is a matter of wonder as to how within these last 2-3 months, a lot of people have bought houses online. So are we moving towards that direction? That we had never seen that houses being sold via online platforms in the past. So this is one thing where I am looking at. I am also interested in doing it, and why not? Like when everything is available online, then why not we sell the properties online, and we cater to the customers online. Of course, this will be a challenge for the developers. They will have to build a lot of platforms for this. They will have to go virtual. So there are developers who take you to the virtual sites, to their sites. And I mean, there is nothing that a digital platform cannot offer today to a borrower or to a customer. So I think by looking into all this, giving a finance in today's situation to the borrowers should not be an issue. And borrowers buying properties as their first properties, we will see that there will be a surge in this. The borrowers who had not bought properties earlier, they are contemplating buying post COVID-19 because they have now realized that buying a property is cheaper. If you look at the EMIs today, there will be 30% less than the EMI being paid by a borrower 2 years back. So why not? This is the real opportunity for a borrower to come into this real estate and buy the houses.
Right. Yeah. So Gitamba, just taking on that point, are you seeing any such trends? Okay, we spoke about online sales. Now, any change in customer preferences, whether or not moving more from leasing to buying, is this happening? Or in terms of preference of size of apartments, luxury to affordable to mid. So any kind of trends we see in last 3 or 4 months emerging, which possibly we say setting the story forward.
So, of course, what Neera says is absolutely right. And I said this in the first webinar we had at FICCI. Whoever, rental housing, co-living and shared living, these are things of the past. After the corona problem, everybody has realized कि कुछ नहीं तो घर अपना होना चाहिए हमारे पास. Like I said, the problem today is, affordability सबकी अलग-अलग है. So aspiration है कि I must have a bigger house with a store and with a office, and it's up to us now. But projects which are already under construction, you can't change the design today. So there is so affordability is the key word today. So affordable housing, and we have a separate company that does affordable housing, and HDFC has a stake in that. So our affordable housing is doing that. Unfortunately, because we are working a lot in Noida, so most of our housing is considered affordable. And depending on the Deepak Parekh committee's recommendation, 4 times your gross annual income, us hisab se affordable is what we are doing. But yes, the basic problem is that in spite of the aspiration of owning your own house today, post-COVID is very strong. And of course, through the internet and online purchases, the inquiries have increased. Problem is that, the sectors who were our customers, airline industry, hotel industry, travel tourism industry, auto industry, they are in a stress. So the person who's our buyer is working in these industries.
Yeah.
And that person today says, I don't know how much of a pay cut I'll be taking in the next 1 year. I don't know whether I'll have my job or not because jobs have been lost. Let's not forget that. So if, we have to be innovative, I would say, as developers. So like very rightly, Neera, you said, the regulator has banned subvention schemes, but if the RBI, and we pushed it very strongly in the finance ministry that, if you can recommend to the RBI to come up with a scheme wherein my customer has the intent to buy, they have a deposit to put up 20%, let them put up a 30% or a 25%. Let them pay their first 2 years interest, not the EMI, interest from that extra 5%, because interest rates have come down a lot. If you are doing a PMAY purchase, then the NPV of your subsidy is about 2.4 lakhs for a 3-bedroom house also. So effectively, the interest is very less. So if that 5% extra that they are putting up as a deposit can look after the interest payment for the first 24 months, because 24 months hence, everything is going to be stable. Because if it's not stable after 24 months, it will never be stable. The economy will never come on track. So I'm saying, give a window of 24 months to my buyer from the HFC. Let the HFC take only interest from their deposit and then refi the interest payment in the 24th month. Because maybe they take a interest, 10% of the deposit is used as interest payment, maybe depending on the size of the loan. Refi that 10% or 5% in the 24th month. And by that time, my home buyer will have a secure job and a secure pay scale. So if something innovative like this is done, and finance ministry has taken note of that, they've asked us for a note. So we've given them a very, detailed note on that. So if something like that happens, there is an intent to buy, there's an aspiration to buy, but there is a lack of confidence to buy. So if that is addressed, then we have a story immediately. And I'm telling you this, what Neera said, I'm totally with her. In the 13%, today real estate contributes to 6 to 7% of the GDP. We have the capacity with the aspiration. So the fastest comeback kid in entire businesses, entire canvas of businesses will be real estate. Because for 1 year, nobody's going on a holiday. For 1 year, nobody's going to travel unless necessary. So 1 year, nobody's going to stay in a hotel. But for 1 year, people want to buy their house. So we are the fastest comeback kid, and we should be, the government should use this opportunity to kickstart the economy by kickstarting real estate. So these small things they are listening to. The good news is they're asking for suggestions and what more should be done, tell us. So we are in continuous dialogue with them. And I'm sure something will evolve soon. We are waiting for the RBI policy. I think in August, first week of August, we're going to have some good announcements. So we are all very hopeful. God willing.
Hopefully, I think we will have something positive on this from the government. So we spoke about consolidation, and Sanjay, coming to you now in the current situation, would you be in the market now to acquire new properties? Right, there are a lot of workouts happening with lenders, bankers. So one is, what kind of asset classes would you want to prefer at this point of time? Right, Resi has been your forte, but would you want to venture in something like industrials, logistics, right? And will you be aggressive also in residential, because you will find a lot of opportunities at this point of time coming from your fellow developers, also from the lenders?
So Piyush, we already have a strategy in place which we rolled out about 2 years ago. So we have close to 20 projects, of which 17 are residential. So and we have another 30 to 40 million square feet under residential to develop. So they are at various stages of planning and development. So one strategy we have rolled out is that we want to be in the city. So some of our new announcements of projects, last year we did Sector 150 and Alipur Calcutta launch. By the end of this year in Mumbai there'll be 3 launches: Chembur, Andheri, and Mulund. So they are more inside the city than outer periphery, which we already have a large portfolio under Tata Value Homes affordable segment. So generally there is no need to grow this portfolio beyond 30 to 40 million square feet. It's already too much. We have a 6 million square feet of commercial, which we felt we should grow. So we have 14 million square feet that we can construct under commercial, in addition to 6 million, which is generating income, rental income for us. So we'll be about 20 million in commercial after we develop the whole. We have signed up 4 term sheets for new land parcels in top 3 or 4 cities, which will give us a potential of another 22 million square feet, taking our commercial also to 40 million square feet portfolio. So we see great value in the market, and therefore it's the topic for our discussion. Can we really unlock the value? The answer is yes. And we've been looking at it. Are we going to go overboard? The answer is no. Perhaps earlier we went in too many cities and states. Now the focus is top 5 or 6 cities only, which we've been maintaining for last 2 years. And that is our forte. That is where we want to build our businesses. And our focus would also be across affordable, mid, and a lot of commercial. In the commercial space, we actually recently got another commitment of pre-lease, build-to-suit commitment of data center. That is one segment we are looking at very aggressively. So B2B formats like data centers, like office, corporate office, IT park will be our focus area. And in the times to come, where we can look at industrial and warehousing, but there is no need. We already have too much to develop for now.
And this question is both to Sanjay and Gitama. Before we go back to Vinamra, how are the investors now looking? When looking at a portfolio, there has been a bias against residential in last 5-6 years, where all the capital has moved in commercial and obviously to warehousing and some in data centers. Is the trend likely to continue, and it may further negate towards residential, or we think some balancing may happen towards residential?
I can take a quick answer on this. I think commercial has a natural advantage of no development risk. It's an income producing. So institutional capital seeking zero development risk, zero leasing marketing risk, long-term, patient capital will go into REITs and office rental. It's a no-brainer. And I think the answer lies in compressing yields that we have seen in last 3 to 4 years. Earlier they were very high, now they're increasingly coming down. So there is a negative spread between borrowing and the yield that you are getting in the market. So that is clearly an indicator that commercial will continue to play a very important role next 2 to 3 years. I think there is an opportunity. I know there is another a Singaporean company called Keppel Land, which had exited India at one time. They are back in residential. I know there is still a lot of private equity.
Japanese funds. We saw one Japanese deal closing in first quarter. Yeah,
exactly. Lot of private equity and fund managers, local, who've been there. They understand the market. They have kind of filtered the tier one developers who have successful track record and better understanding and better organization structure. They're chasing those relationships. In fact, many of them may even go for platform level discussions. So I think the area will remain exciting. It's just that it will be consolidated. In every market, there'll be top 5 or 6 players and not hundreds and thousands that we saw in the past.
Okay, right. Gitambar, your view on this? Yeah. You're on mute. You're on mute.
So my personal view is, you see, housing is the foundation of real estate, and it will always be, you know, that the tortoise and the frog story. So housing is the tortoise, is the kachua. It keeps plodding, and the best thing is that there's a huge demand of housing in this country, huge. And today also we need about 10 million units in the urban areas and 40 million units in tier 2, tier 3 cities. As an organization, ATS is now venturing into tier 3, tier 4 towns also. And we are doing affordable housing, we are doing mid-income housing, we are doing high-end, very small housing, a very small part of high-end housing. But, and I've seen this cycle, you know, the housing thing keeps plodding, commercial like that, then again up, then again down. So I'm not saying anything against commercial. We are also doing commercial. But I think the stability of real estate comes from housing. And because the country has a solid actual demand for housing, and the government understands that there is a huge opportunity in housing. So you see the policy for housing, you see PMAY, you see now the rental, affordable rental housing complex policy they were just announced for migrant laborers and all. So there's a huge opportunity. And I would say, look at the pyramid of demand in housing. The base has got so much meat. And when we have gone to smaller towns, we've realized there's so much of meat over there. What will happen is, like Neera also said, and I think Vinamra also said, and Sanjay also pointed out, consolidation is going to be key, and it's happening. So you'll see very shortly, you'll see the good players in each geography actually not partnering, but actually helping out the smaller players who are stressed. So there'll be a big boat. And in our organization, we made a new company which actually takes up stall projects. Neera, I must tell you, we call it ATS Nirman. We've already got 2 in the kitty, and we're looking at more. So this consolidation will give comfort to the private equity players. And we are not looking so much at debt. We are looking now at a platform level deal. We've done one platform level deal in the affordable housing sector. Now we are looking at a platform level deal for stressed assets, because there are some 5 lakh crore worth of units in the country which are stalled. That's what the latest figure said the other day. So if we can set up a successful, why if we've already set it up, and if we can get a good private equity player who, it's a very asset light, lightly capitalized model. So we are trying to put together a structure wherein a stall project can actually be turned around, and this is a 5 to 7 year play with the kind of stall projects which we see today. So there's enough opportunity in housing, greenfield and brownfield. So if somebody can crack both, I think there's a valuation game here.
Right.
And the similar, you see, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. Completely, sorry.
So like, you know, we are looking at a valuation in commercial real estate. So now we have started looking at a valuation in the residential real estate play. So when we talk of a platform deal, we always actually eventually look at a valuation. So be it a stressed asset play, be it greenfield housing, which is affordable and mid-income housing. Going forward, consolidation, platform level, and you'll have juggernauts and big guys in each geography who are doing this play. Consolidation will happen, and maybe so what I've seen in Noida and Gurgaon and NCR, the smaller players are saying, okay, let's have a model where we still are, fixing the nuts and bolts in the stall project. You get in, give the lender comfort to give money, capital to this. You control the money. We will not take out a single rupee. We only want to get free of RERA. We want to get free of the customer responsibility. We want to complete the project, even if we don't make any money, even if we have to pay something equity out of pocket, but we don't want to have the burden of an incomplete project. So that is good news. So this model is emerging in most geographies, and I see this going forward. Brownfield housing or stall projects, as we see it, it's a huge opportunity, and it'll take at least 5 to 7 years to do that. Greenfield will continue, and 40 million houses in tier 3, tier 4 towns. So we've done 3 such complexes with 1,000 units. The concept over there is not high rise. We've done a project in Bulandshahr, which is close to the NCR. We've done one in Bareilly. We've done one in Muradabad. So it is a concept of Meri Zameen, Mera Asman. They want to own a house which is expandable, because they don't want to go to a high-rise community wherein, when son gets married, then they have to buy another apartment. Other one gets married, they have to buy another apartment. They want a concept where one son gets married, I put another floor on top. Next one gets married, I put another. So it's an expandable concept. It's doing very well. Yeah. And all 3 of our projects have seen traction over there. So we are looking at this opportunity in a big way. Plus, we are also looking at office spaces. There's Sanjay and Vinamra on the panel. So I want to tell them that we are looking at office spaces. And we have some very good assets lined up, which I think Capital Land say, so we've already shown some assets to you all. So it's not that I'm saying that it's just real estate, but it's just residential. But residential historically has been the foundation of real estate place. This is what I personally feel.
Yeah. So and a good thing which you said is, the equity may come back. I think so. What was lacking in the developers was equity. Everyone kind of played with more leverage.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. So Vinamra, coming to you now, is there any change, from the international developers or the institutional players to how they looked at commercial? Now, developers like you all were looking at development risk also, in commercial. Will that strategy continue, or you think that may possibly misplaced for a few months to come? And within the different markets, you've been focusing on, will you be more selective now in choosing what you want to do?
See, Piyush, for the first question, there are 2 types of foreign investors in this country as far as commercial real estate is concerned. One is the ones who are developers on their own, right? And there are others who are pure sovereign wealth funds or private equities who partner with developers. Both of them have exposure to greenfield development. Our sense is that pretty much all of them will continue their development. All the projects that are under construction are going to continue. It's same for us. We've got projects under construction in all the 6 tier 1 cities that we are in, and they are all going to continue. And we even continue to look at new investments as well. And I'm quite sure I speak on behalf of most of my peers in those foreign investor companies as well. And the reason for that was already mentioned earlier as well, that commercial has been a stable asset once it achieves stability because of the recurring income nature, right? REITs have only reinforced that idea because dividend yields will continue to drive investors. I hope they reduce the lot size so more and more retail investors can start participating as well. So I think in the long term, I don't see much change in strategy from foreign investors. And if you look at the other asset classes of real estate, the 2 which will continue to gain traction are logistics and data center. Logistics already is quite crowded now. Data centers, Sanjay earlier mentioned, we are very close to completing our deals as well there. So I will expect more and more from data centers as well. So for foreign investors, I think all these 3 sectors, commercial, warehousing, and data centers, will continue to be extremely lucrative. Having said that, right now, at least in the next 1 year, and I talk to a lot of investors outside India because we're headquartered in Singapore, as you know, so we engage a lot with investors in Southeast Asia. And a lot of money that flows into India channels through Singapore. And there I do see some skepticism, at least in the short term, because for a foreign investor, he has now options to look at India greenfield as a target asset class versus a Western market stabilized asset as a target asset class. What has been happening is that the India greenfield story now is coming with an additional risk, at least for the short term. So what they're saying is that, if I was looking for at least a 17, 18% IRR, equity IRR earlier, now I'm looking at 21, 22%. Unfortunately, the stress of the market hasn't really translated to asset pricing as yet. Yeah. I think it will happen. I think it's a bit too soon. Typically, there is a lag of 4 to 6 months before finally landowners say, okay, you know what? Yeah, it's not selling. I need to come down on my expectations. And a lot of foreign investors are sitting on a lot of dry powder to wait for that price corrections to happen. But till those price corrections don't happen, investor IRR expectation has increased, pricing had not reduced. And that is why I do see that there will be a very cautious approach to investing in greenfield projects in India, at least till that correction happens. And there is a parity between return expectation because the risks have increased but you are able to deliver this return because your entry prices have gone down.
Yeah.
Once that balance happens, then I think it will be normal, which was happening for the last 5-6 years with the commercial boom. This year, I think, or this year, when I say this year, probably 1 year from now, will be that time period where this imbalance will remain to a certain extent, right? So that's what we are seeing as far as the investor sentiment is concerned. And honestly speaking, today, even the Western stabilized markets are giving you good returns, even to the extent of 6 to 7% dollar returns, right?
Yes.
You add another 5-6% rupee, that's like 12 to 13% at a rupee level, risk-free. That is pretty good for a lot of investors. So they are saying, I would rather park my money in a stabilized building in Singapore or London than search for this 20% in India, which I hope I get it, but the risks are just too high. Right. That's what's going on in their mind as of now. But I'm pretty sure it will change as time period evolves. Quickly to your next question of locations. Unfortunately, I think for India commercial story, it is the top 6 cities or maybe top 7 cities that have continued to gather 80-85% of the grade A occupier demand. And we are continuing to see the same story. The tier 1 cities, the top 6 to 7 are continuing to increase in concentric circles. So, Bangalore today is still ORR. Now it's slowly going to North Bangalore, slowly to the airport. Same with Gurgaon, same with Hyderabad. But what's not yet happening is the foreign companies saying, okay, I'm willing to open up a new campus in a Mysore or a Mohali or a Lucknow. I wish that happens because that's far more sustainable for the whole urban development story for India. But unfortunately, that's not yet happening. And which is why most commercial developers and foreign money will continue to look at these 6 or 7 tier 1 cities the same as us as well. So we will continue to focus on these only for the commercial sector. Logistics is a different story because it's driven by the supply chain network and the hub and spoke model. So logistics will see more foreign capital coming into these cities because they are hubs and nodes to cater to the entire state from a demography perspective. But for commercial, we will continue to look at only these 6, and that's pretty much where most of the money will continue to go into, at least in the short term.
Okay. And just follow on to this, even within large cities, do you think focus slightly may move from CBD to SBDs because of the higher pricing in the CBDs?
Piyush, it was already happening, right? You are in the segment. You would also know that this was already happening in most of the cities. So for every mind-boggling transaction that happens in a BKC, there are 15 other transactions that do not make the headlines that happen in the western and eastern suburbs of Mumbai, right? So that shift was already happening because a lot of occupiers are getting very conscious on the price front, at the same time getting more sophisticated on the expectation of quality, right? So a lot of developers are now able to provide the grade A specs that the occupiers require, but not in the CBD because then the math doesn't work because the CBD land price itself are too high. And the occupiers are actually okay to go to SBDs or PBDs, especially with the way metro networks are progressing everywhere. So, and I think that trend will continue to happen pre-COVID, even post-COVID, where all these 3 locations, CBD, PBD, SBD, will have a specific type of customer set that would want to come there. A high-tech foreign MNC or a foreign investment bank wanting a sleek front office will always want to be in that BKC, right? But a captive doing R&D for its tech is okay to pay 30 rupees lower and go to an SBD. So it's horses for courses. I think there'll be good demand for all the sectors. It is about how people position their offerings.
Okay, thanks. I think we can just take a few, audience questions. I think in audience, people can please raise hands and, we can take up the questions with the panelist.
Sachin, you're coordinating with the delegates?
Yeah. So we have one question from Pradeep Kumar.
Excuse me. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, Pradeep, please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Myself, Pradeep Kumar. Sir, I want to know about the land pooling policy of Delhi and when it will take some pace. Are you getting me?
Yeah, I think it's Gitamar. It's probably more relevant for you.
Yeah.
Land policy in NCR.
So, Pradeep, the land pooling policy has already been announced. And as far as, it is a very progressive policy, but as far as it's getting paid, you see, the problem is whenever somebody has to pool their land, and more so here in the NCR, and when you tell a farmer, give me your land and I'll give it back to you after 5 years once development is done, and I'll give you FSNI. Farmer, most of them may understand it, but बहुत से ऐसे लोग होते हैं जो कहते हैं नहीं हमको नहीं समझ आता ये. Why don't you just buy my land? So in such a huge, it's 25,000 hectares that is being pulled in. You cannot assume that all 100% farmers will say, okay, let's go and do land pooling. Why? Because in the process of land pooling, your land you're just giving away, but you're getting a document for that. And then that document says that after so many years when it's developed, you'll get 60% of your land or 70% developed land. Some may believe it, some may say, fine, this is a good thing, I'll do it. But most of them, जो मूल किसान है वो कहता है नहीं ये कागज का मैं क्या करूंगा कल को if something happens to me, my kids will just have this. So that conviction in them is a little difficult to actually operate. So that is why you cannot give a timeline as to when this will be completed. The policy from their side, the government has done their bit.
There any another chance for investment here, or stay aside from it?
If you are a land aggregator, I would say, hang on, wait.
No time limit to wait.
So there are so many other opportunities. Look, we were talking on this panel. There's so many other opportunities. It's the time for buying land, I think, is gone, because you cannot speculate on land now. There's been so much uncertainty, and it's not going to end in a hurry. So I would not advise you to speculate on land just to make money.
Any more questions from the audience?
Second actually question is from Abhinav Garg. Abhinav?
Hi, good
Sachin,
afternoon.
move to the next one.
I think Abhinav is here now.
Okay.
I think there is some time lag. Apologies for that. So my question was, we were talking a lot about the commercial space being, substantially stable. We were focusing on offices, data centers, which are actually creating demand, and we are moving forward. How about the retail segment or the commercial complex segment of it? Do we also see a similar positive sentiment, or is it the other way around?
Sanjay, you want to?
No, I think in the commercial real estate space, we've seen a specialization. There are developers who are focused on office. There are developers who are focused on office and industrial warehousing. And there are developers who continue to thrive and excel in retail, and many have exited. So just the way office was 10 years ago, that's where the retail is. There is a consolidation happening. And the top 3 or 4 players are creating a large portfolio by acquiring existing portfolio with the intent of doing a REIT or indeed building a large platform. So I think that will, in the short term, is, as you know, is severely hit. But I have no doubt that these strong ones will take advantage of the current market situation and scale. And there is a lot of patient capital available for them. So there are enough sovereigns who are very keen to fund these platforms.
Great. Do we have time for more questions, Neerja? Sachin?
1 or 2, Sachin, if somebody is waiting. Or else
Yeah, Mithilesh is there. Mithilesh.
And then we ask Gitambarji to conclude the session.
Yeah.
I have a question.
So good evening, Mithilesh Gokani, and I'm the founder of a prop platform called Ghas.com. I hope you hear me, sir.
Yes, please.
It's good.
Yes, sir. So I want to post COVID. What is the importance? How relevant is prop tech? Because it was not that, and people had this trust it would develop, but now post COVID, people can't do sites. People want to do the discovery home, and hopefully even travels. How this industry now?
So not followed the full question, but I think the role of prop tech is increasing. I think Neera said it very well, that developers are already gearing up across all stages of transactions and customer journey. In fact, in the commercial real estate, it is beyond just leasing. It is everything. And I think even in the design and construction, uh, the role of PropTech is actually all-time high. We've actually allocated considerable amount of investment and capital to see that we bring in even machine learning, artificial intelligence into the modeling and data analytics to enable quicker and better marketing strategies to promote the parks or indeed residential projects. So all that is very high in my opinion. Yes.
So as co-founder, I think I'll be positive now for the investors to come in prop tech industry.
No, absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
With that, Sachin, we leave it to the moderator to invite Mr. Gitambaranan to conclude the session.
I have a question here.
Yeah.
I'm Tyagarajan.
Sure.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. This is regarding the commercial office space demand. As I understand from based on today's conversation, a lot of optimism in terms of the push to the commercial development. But based on that market study and survey, what we understand it, there is likely to be 30% reduction in terms of the commercial space requirement, as well as this is mainly due to the post-COVID de-densification and also the success of the working from home. So somehow I see some kind of contradiction into what we studied and what that the industry perceives. Could any one of you can just clarify that? What is that?
I'll take that. So what you're seeing in the reports currently is not a factor of long-term changes. The numbers that we're seeing in the quarter one or the half year one is a reflection of the lockdown. Nobody could travel. Commercial rental decisions happen significantly when the ultimate decision maker travels down to the site, etc. None of that was happening. So the drop that you're seeing 30, 40, 50% in this half is a function of that. And even we are expected to end the year somewhere around at least 40 or maybe even 50% down from last year. And all of that will be a significant driver of the lockdown situation. In the mid or the long run, there are two counter forces at play. One is the fact that there is work from home, which how successful will it be will be known not now, but in a longer period of time. Right now, there was no option, so everybody had to be at home. Tomorrow, when there is an option with the challenges of infrastructure, tech, etc., it remains to be seen on what is that percentage of work from home that will stabilize. It is expected that that percentage will be higher than what it was pre-COVID. Having said that, the other counterforce is the fact that due to social distancing, there will be different designs which will require more spaces. Due to BCP purposes, there may be need not to put all space in one building, but expand, etc. And the pie continues to grow bigger because India's attractiveness as a high quality tech destination with cost arbitrage will only get better. So when you put all of these things together, right now, the sense in the market is that it doesn't seem that all of this together is going to impact the amount of real estate or office space. And even if it does, to what extent, it is still, time will tell. So the sense from all occupiers and developers right now is that this will even out and the basic drivers of growth of the need for office space will still continue to be there. The way this happens, the way offices get designed, invested in, yes, will definitely change in the post-COVID era. But there is no one-to-one correlation that the amount of space itself will go down.
Also,
Sanjay,
yeah, I just want to add quickly, Vinamra. I think a lot of people are comparing commercial to residential. So unlike residential, where there was a lot of excessive supply, in commercial, there is no excessive supply. Or more importantly, relevant supply. So a lot of commercial developments may have been built, but the key locations, if you see across the country where there is maximum demand, the vacancy is single digit 3 to 4% or 5%. While as a city, it may be 18%, 14%, which means a lot of commercial got built in wrong places. The second aspect is even in global financial crisis, when the world took a hit, we had 35 million square feet absorption in 2008, which came down to 19 million square feet in next following 2 years. Yes, short-term setback is huge, but it started to come back and reach 47 million square feet from 19 million in 2008 to 2019, 47 million square feet net absorption. So maybe this year we will touch 19 to 20, and maybe it will remain so, like Vinamra said, for another year or so, but gradually it will come back. And if globally, if organizations want to optimize their costs, they want to outsource more, the natural gain is for the country. And I've said it in many webinars, residential is linked to domestic consumption, office market is linked to global consumption. So that is one more distinction that we have in comparison to residential.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjay, and thank you, Vinamra.
Great. If there are any more questions, we'll be happy to take them offline and send it to the respective speakers. In the interest of time, may I invite our office bearer, our co-chairman, real estate sector, Mr. Gitambar Anand, to please give us concluding remarks.
Thank you, Nija. Thank you so much. So what has emerged, I think, from this discussion is that real estate is one of the safest asset classes. Gold is too expensive now, and real estate, they say, though the prices are not decreasing, but then it's at a good price and a good time to invest. So having said that, let's be realistic. It's not time to celebrate just yet because the COVID scenario is not yet over. I think we are yet to see the worst effect of COVID, and I think July, August are months which are, because of the humidity, there will be some more disruptions is what we feel. So, but yes, in the long run, absolutely safe, absolutely strong, and one must have their own house to live in is something that we have been advocating. And
we lost him.
Yeah, but I think Mr. Gitambar Anand summarized very well. So let's not, prematurely celebrate because there is still stress and there is still a lot of uncertainty. I have no doubt that if you're a medium to long-term player in real estate, you will only see the unlocking potential in the country far more than the concerns. So it's an opportunity for developers who have access to capital, have demonstrated success, to take advantage of this and therefore leapfrog their businesses in India. Thank you very much for everybody's participation.
Thank you.
Nirja, thank you for you.
On that, right.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you very much. On that positive
Thank
note,
you.
I thank all the speakers for being with us today. Thank you very much for joining us, delegates.
Thank you.
Until we see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.